In the quiet suburb of Willow Creek, nestled between rolling hills and whispering pines, lived the Thompson family. At the heart of their modest two-story home was Eleanor Thompson, a woman whose life was a tapestry woven with threads of unwavering love and silent sacrifice. Eleanor, or Ellie as her husband called her, was 48 years old, with silver streaks beginning to grace her once raven black hair. Her eyes, deep brown and kind, held stories of joy and sorrow that she rarely shared. She had married young at 20 to Robert, a hard-working mechanic who dreamed of bigger things but settled for the steady rhythm of small-town life. Their family consisted of 3 children. Sarah, the eldest at 25, a budding artist who had moved to the city for college but returned home sporadically. Michael, 22, who worked at the local garage with his father, harboring quiet ambitions of starting his own business. And little Emily, just 16, the baby of the family, full of teenage dreams and rebellion. The Thompsons weren't wealthy, far from it. Robert's job paid the bills but barely, and Eleanor's part-time work as a seamstress in the living room supplemented their income. Yet, Ellie made sure the house always smelled of fresh-baked bread and felt like a sanctuary. From the outside, their life seemed ordinary, but within those walls, Ellie's greatness shone like a beacon in the fog. She was the glue that held them together, the one who remembered birthdays with homemade cakes, mended torn clothes with invisible stitches, and listened to heartaches without judgment. Her greatness wasn't in grand gestures, but in the everyday miracles she performed. When Robert lost his job during the recession 10 years ago, it was Ellie who turned their garage into a makeshift workshop, sewing curtains and dresses for neighbors until they could afford rent. She never complained, even when her fingers bled from the needle pricks or her back ached from bending over the machine late into the night. "Mom, you don't have to do this," Sarah had said once, watching her mother work under the dim lamp. Ellie had smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Oh, sweetheart, what else is a mother for? We're a family. We lift each other up." That was Ellie's mantra. Family first. She had grown up in a broken home herself, with a father who drank away his sorrows and a mother who left when Ellie was just 12. Vowing never to let her children feel that abandonment, she poured her soul into creating a haven. Even in the smallest ways, her love was profound. For Michael, who struggled with dyslexia in school, she spent hours reading aloud, turning stories into adventures that built his confidence. For Emily, whose artistic flair mirrored Sarah's, Ellie saved scraps of fabric to make costumes for school plays. And for Robert, her rock, she was the quiet strength that kept him going, massaging his calloused hands after long days and whispering encouragements in the dark. But life, as it often does, tested the limits of her endurance. It started subtly with fatigue that Ellie brushed off as just getting older. Then came the coughs, dry at first, then wet and persistent. Robert noticed first, urging her to see a doctor. "Ellie, love, you're not yourself," he'd say, worry etching lines on his forehead. But Ellie, ever the caretaker, waved it away. "We can't afford it right now. The kids need new shoes and Sarah's tuition is due. I'll be fine." Deep down, she knew something was wrong. The pain in her chest grew sharper, like a knife twisting with each breath. Nights became battles against insomnia, where she'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking of her family. What would they do without her? Sarah was independent but fragile, still healing from a bad breakup. Michael hid his insecurities behind bravado, and Emily was at that age where the world seemed against her. Robert, bless him, was strong but lost without her guidance. One crisp autumn morning, as leaves painted the ground in hues of gold and crimson, Ellie collapsed in the kitchen while preparing breakfast. The clatter of the pan woke the household. Robert rushed in, finding her on the floor, gasping. "Call an ambulance," he shouted to Michael, who fumbled with his phone. Emily stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. At the hospital, the diagnosis shattered them. Stage 4 lung cancer. It had spread silently, like shadows creeping across a sunlit room. The doctor, a kind man with weary eyes, explained the options: chemotherapy, radiation, but the prognosis was grim. 6 months, maybe a year with treatment, he said gently. Ellie, propped up in the bed, held Robert's hand tightly. "We'll fight this," she whispered, though her voice trembled. The news rippled through the family like a stone in still water. Sarah drove home immediately, her art supplies forgotten in the city. "Mom, why didn't you say something?" she cried, hugging Ellie fiercely. Michael paced the room, fists clenched. This isn't fair. You've given everything to us. Emily curled up beside her mother, sobbing quietly. Ellie, in her infinite wisdom, turned the moment into one of unity. Listen to me, all of you, she said, her voice steady despite the pain. Life isn't about fairness, it's about love. I've had a good life because of you. Now we face this together as a family. The months that followed were a blur of hospital visits, treatments, and quiet moments at home. Ellie insisted on normalcy. She continued sewing, though her hands shook now, creating a quilt from old family clothes, a patchwork of memories. Each square told a story. Sarah's first prom dress, Michael's little league jersey, Emily's baby blanket. This will keep you warm when I'm not here, she'd say lightly, but her eyes betrayed the sorrow. Robert took on more, learning to cook her recipes, though his attempts often ended in laughter. Ellie, your lasagna is unbeatable, he'd admit, and she'd smile, guiding him from her chair. Her greatness emerged in how she prepared them for life without her. She sat with Sarah, sharing stories of her own youthful dreams. I wanted to be a painter too, you know? But I chose family, and I'd choose it again 1,000 times. Sarah, inspired, began sketching portraits of her mother, capturing the light in her eyes. With Michael, she discussed his future. You're smarter than you think, son. Start that business. Don't wait like your father and I did. He nodded, tears in his eyes, and began saving for tools. For Emily, she imparted life lessons over tea. Be kind to yourself, darling. The world will be hard enough. Emily, who had been distant in her teen angst, clung to her now, helping with chores and reading aloud from old books. But the cancer was relentless. Treatments weakened her body, turning her vibrant frame frail. Hair fell in clumps, and nausea kept her bedridden. Still, Ellie's spirit burned bright. On good days, she'd gather the family for picnics in the backyard, recounting funny anecdotes from their past. Remember when Michael tried to build a treehouse and it collapsed? She'd laugh and they'd join in, the sound a balm against the pain. One evening, as winter's chill settled in, Ellie called them to her bedside. Her breathing was labored, the oxygen mask a constant companion. I need to tell you something, she said softly. Robert sat beside her, holding her hand. The children gathered close. I've always believed a mother's love is the greatest force in the world. It's not just in birthing you or feeding you. It's in teaching you to stand on your own. I've watched you grow and I'm so proud. Sarah, your art will touch hearts. Michael, your strength will build empires. Emily, your kindness will change the world. Robert, my love, you've been my everything. Tears flowed freely. Mom, don't talk like this, Emily pleaded. Ellie smiled weakly. I have to, sweetheart. Promise me you'll take care of each other. Family is all we have. They promised, their voices breaking. That night, as snow blanketed the ground outside, Ellie slipped away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by the ones she loved most. The funeral was a simple affair, attended by neighbors and friends who shared stories of Ellie's generosity. She mended my wedding dress for free when I couldn't afford it, one said. She baked pies for the whole block during holidays, another recalled. Her greatness, often unseen, was now illuminated in the collective memory. In the weeks that followed, grief enveloped the Thompsons like a heavy fog. Robert wandered the house aimlessly, touching her things, the sewing machine, the half-finished quilt. Sarah threw herself into her art, painting a series called Mother's Light, each canvas a tribute to Ellie's sacrifices. Michael's business took off. He named it Ellie's Garage, a nod to her unwavering support. Emily, perhaps hit hardest, found solace in the quilt. Wrapping herself in it, she felt her mother's embrace. One day, sorting through Ellie's belongings, they discovered a journal hidden in a drawer. Pages filled with her handwriting chronicling their lives. Not the hardships but the joys. Entries about Sarah's first steps, Michael's graduation, Emily's laughter. And interspersed her thoughts. Today, I skipped my doctor's appointment to buy Emily's school supplies. It's worth it. Their happiness is my greatest achievement. Reading it together, they wept, realizing the depth of her selflessness. She had known about the cancer earlier than she let on, choosing to delay treatment to spare them financial ruin. She gave her life for us, Robert whispered, voice hoarse. Years passed, but Ellie's legacy endured. Sarah became a renowned artist, her exhibitions drawing crowds who marveled at the emotion in her work. Inspired by my mother, she'd say in interviews, Michael expanded his garage into a chain, employing locals and giving back to the community, just as Ellie had. Emily pursued nursing, driven by the desire to help others as her mother had helped her. On anniversaries, the family gathered at her grave, sharing stories under the willow tree. She was great, wasn't she? Emily would say, and they'd nod, hearts full. In the end, Ellie's story was one of quiet heroism, a mother's love that transcended death, binding her family in eternal gratitude. Her greatness lay not in fame or fortune, but in the lives she shaped, the hearts she mended, and the unbreakable bond she forged. Though the world moved on in Willow Creek, her echo lingered, a sad yet beautiful reminder that true greatness is born of sacrifice.